Awesome. All right, we will call this meeting to order. Today is Tuesday, October 2nd, 24, and the time is 7:06 p.m. Melissa, will you please take roll?
Yes, absolutely. Aaron Pellegrini. Here. Rick Orr. Here. Cabarrus.
Here.
Carter. Here. Denton. Here. Thank you. Also seated at the board table is Superintendent of Schools, Bob Thompson, and our CFO, Jeff.
Right, if we could all rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of America
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Right. Board members, in packets, you have some meeting minutes. Looks like we have two sets of meeting minutes. One's from the October 8th meeting and one's from October 15th. So if you give those a look, that would be great.
I would make a motion to accept the minutes from the October 8th regular meeting and the, can I do them at the same time? Yes, you can. And October 5th budget work.
Second. All approved.
Thank you.
All right. At this point, we'll open up the floor for public comments. Melissa, anyone come?
No, at this time, I'm not aware of anyone wanted to make comments tonight.
Okay. Move on to the Hampstead Middle School AC Field presentation with Principal Bernard.
Good evening. I'd like to ask Charlotte O'Neill, Sarah Ryder, and Martin up to action for our over DC field.
Hi, we're Miss Wolves, 6th grade leader blacks. Miss Sarah. My name is Emma. And my name is Charlotte. We are today to ask permission for the grade class to participate in overnight field to Washington, D.C. The date is May 6th through 9th, and the ticket cost per will be $1,100. The purpose of this is to enhance social studies curriculum, allowing us to democracy. With this, the White House Supreme Court United States Capitol, we will be able to serve all branches of government in person. This trip has the ability to impact our view of our nation and world. This will make the student more engaged in the topic and further understand it. Thank you for considering this impact trip.
Right. Thank you all for speaking. Board members, any questions about the trip? Or comments?
Will it keep our super from getting in trouble with the Secret Service this time?
I can make no promises, but I'm looking forward to sharing the trip along with Mrs. Bernard.
The only question I have is, so it's $100 per student. Are they going to do any fundraising or anything to try to help them? It seems like a lot for each family to.
Yeah, Mrs. Bernard, if you'd like to that question.
So we're in the stages of communication out to families. Absolutely that's a tentative cost, so don't have a final order, but definitely saying.
Okay, great.
And the other piece too is, I mean, we know that this is a very generous community. And so we'll, look to some of our community partners who may want to provide a scholarship, and even parents too. We had a number of parents reach out last year who said, I'd like to help a family that can't afford the trip. And, based on last year's numbers, we certainly we're having a hard time making the payments. And the payments are broken up, so it does make the overall burden a little easier. But Mrs. Bernard and I met and discussed, any student who's in good standing will go on the trip. A financial burden is not something, even if we have to pay for it ourselves. Every kid that is able to go on this trip will go on the trip.
Well, I'd like to thank the students for coming up and requesting that. I would like to make a motion to accept.
Second.
Board members, any other questions or comments? Okay, all approved. All right. Thank you all for coming.
Great presentation, thank you.
Move on to the 2025-26 school department budget presentation with Thompson.
All right. So I'm proud tonight to be able to kick off officially our budget season, although budget season for us actually begins in July. Over the summer is when we start the preliminary work of developing the budget. But this is really sort of our first rollout to the public and to the board. And so what I want to do is I want to start with our website. So those of you who are following along at home right now, if you want to indulge in a deep dive into the school district budget, you will go to the website. You'll see in the right-hand corner, it says 25-26 budget. Joe, if you could click on that. So this page right here, thanks to CFO Dowd, this will be the clearinghouse where all of our budget documents presented in a variety of different ways will be housed for the public to be able to view. And so right now, since we're at the beginning of the budget process, the document we have here are the department and school level budgets, the expense budgets. So Mr. Diane, if you could just click on that real quickly.
So just so you're aware that that's not being shared right now on the, this isn't being shared.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Just one second. Yeah. Yeah, at least somebody does. Okay, great. So basically, what our directors and principals will present tonight is not these budget documents in their entirety. We would be here for days. They are going to present you a highlight. They're going to present to you cost increases and decreases, but the full version of the budgets that they prepared in all of their glory are here. So if you want to know how much money the Hampstead Central School is spending on Goldfish, the snack cracker, you can go to the budget document. You'll see we spent about $150 on Goldfish. So the level of detail is here. So please feel free, and again, we will update this. So, all right, thank you, Joe. Can we go back to the presentation?
Actually, Bob, could you have Joe go back on and show people where that is on the website?
Yeah. Can you walk So on the front of the web page, on the right-hand bottom corner there's an icon that says 25-26 budget. You click on that. Additional documents will be added. So right now we have the department and school budgets. We'll add this presentation, and we'll add other documents as we move through the process. If folks have any questions after this presentation, they can reach out to any member of this team, set up a time. We can walk you through line by line. We can show you how we arrived at some of these numbers. We want to make sure we're as transparent as possible with the community. All right, now without further ado, Joe, can you get us to our presentation? Okay, so this is our 25-26 expense budget presentation. If we move to the agenda. So you are going to hear from, our various departments and schools on all of the expenses that they will incur for the 25-26 school year. Again, this is proposed. We have been making adjustments. We held a work session with the school board last week. We received feedback. We met by department or school, evaluated the board's feedback, and then made some adjustments. You'll see those reflected in the budget documents, but you'll also hear some of that in the presentation that each department and school will give. At the conclusion of the presentation, the board will have an opportunity to ask any questions. And so, Joe, if we can move to the next slide, please. So, our overarching goals. Why do we do the work that we do? And really, a school's operating budget is an articulation of a school district's vision, mission, and their goals. And so, number one, the reason why we build the budget the way we do is to ensure a commitment to the values and priorities that we have identified in the strategic plan. We intentionally roll out the deliverables for the strategic plan at the beginning of the year so you can see what our vision is, and then we go into budget so you can see an articulation of that vision through the budgeting process. We also have a commitment to ensure that we're keeping our educational facilities in good working order. We know that we have space issues, but if you look at our facilities, they are very, very well kept. And you will see financial resources committing to the continuation of the facilities. Additionally, ensuring information technology systems are supported and strengthened. We understand that cybersecurity attacks are a real threat to our school system. We have to be incredibly versatile and responsive to those needs, and you'll see that reflected in the technology budget. And then, last and certainly not least, we want to make sure that we are good financial stewards of the Hampstead taxpayers. We have to balance the needs of our students with the needs of the people we work for, the taxpayer. We understand that folks are on a fixed income. We understand that folks have a difficult time paying their tax bill. I have conversations with people weekly about this dilemma, and we are always mindful of that when we go through this process. And at the end of the day, before I hand it over to our department heads and principals, we are committed to continuous improvement. We want to be at least a little bit better next year than we are this year. That's the goal. Incremental change, incremental improvement over the long haul presents real results. And I feel like we have been doing that. And this is an operating budget that continues that. So we're talking about continuous improvement, continuous growth. So without further ado, we will hand it over to our first department, which is the Hampstead Central School.
Hello, everybody. Our proposed budget for 25-26 is $232,331. Our current budget for the 24-25 school year is $210,222, which is a net increase of $22,109. We'll get into why that is. So as we look at next year's projected enrollment, on the middle column, you have our current actual enrollment for 24-25. At this moment, we have 470 students at the central school, distributed fairly evenly across our grade levels. In 25-26, we are projecting an increase of 3 students at this time. The pre-K and kindergarten numbers are always a wild card, and those number predictions came from our last year's NESDEC report. A new report will be coming out in November that should have more accurate projections. The 79 number for kindergartners is, I think, a little bit low, but we'll see how that grows as we move through our enrollment season. So some highlights of our budget that have led to the increase indicated before are an increase in our elementary education supply line. This is really price increases due to inflation. Our prices are going up all across the board, and we're really seeing that in our elementary ed supplies. That line includes things like our paper, our pencils, our crayons, our markers, our basic necessities for students and staff to complete their educational work. Another area of increase is in our information access fees. Again, subscription prices are going up as we're sort of living in this hybrid of a digital and print world. We do have some of those online programs such as Lexia, Starfall, iReady, things like that, and some of those prices increase incrementally each year. One line where we're down is in our elementary education new equipment line. Usually we use this line to purchase new equipment such as furniture, flexible seating, things of that nature. And that's actually a decrease this year of almost $2,000 because our focus for next year is to replace our old furniture as opposed to adding new furniture to our building. So elementary ed replacement equipment is up. We have a replacement cycle for classroom furniture, and the 25-26 school year will have us focusing on replacement of the grade 2 classroom furniture, including their desks and chairs, which are several years old, well, a couple decades old even. And then our library book line is down for the future year. As we have had to be mobile with our library this year, we've really gotten down to what are those basic necessities, and there are just fewer titles that are needed in our library for next year, so we're saving about $1,000 there. And then another line where we are up significantly is our workshop line. A big focus for us is our MTSSB work and our work on student wellness. And so this line is up, which includes professional learning, including a train the trainer opportunity for some of our staff members and a keynote presentation to continue to develop our systems. Now for Hampstead Middle School.
So as we can see at Hampstead Middle School, our proposed budget is $243,874. The current budget is $212,100, which gives us a difference of $31,774. If we look at our enrollment, I think this is so ironic, but when we look at the numbers in the 4th grade this year, they match exactly our 8th grade class. So when we look at our projected enrollment for next year, it's exactly the same at this time. So we have 356 students at Hampstead Middle School with a projected enrollment of 356, and we'll see how that shakes out in the coming months. And for some of our highlights, I'd like to highlight the fact that we are looking to replace our staging that we use for the musical. This is a cost of $15,000. This will provide safe staging for our students. The current stage is over 30 years old. This will also be able to be used at the central school where they're currently borrowing from another district. So we'll be able to use it across the district and then hopefully give other opportunities to use it, such as 8th grade celebrations, things like that. The next thing I'd like to highlight, as the central school did, is our general school supplies are up. We have kept our budget the same for 16 years, and so to account for the inflation, the cost of inflation, our general school supplies line is up $3,009. The next thing we're accounting for is the principal mentor training. So this is a district thing that every new principal does. This is done through the New Hampshire Association of School Principals, where any new principal has the opportunity to have a mentor from another district. And so we found some money in the budget to pay for this year, and this will be for next year. It's a 2-year program. The next thing I'd like to highlight is the fact that we would like to add 2 additional radios at $485 each. That'll give us a cost of $1,050. That will allow for our entire school safety team to have radios accessible for emergencies. So really trying to kind of beef that up. The next thing I'd like to highlight is $1,500 for our STEAM Integration and Family Night. We know that that is so successful. We want to ensure that that continues. We've applied for and received grants for that, and we will do that again. So if we do receive that grant, then that money will go back. But we just want to ensure that we continue to have that night. The next thing I'd like to highlight is a decrease, our library replacement equipment. So we're decreasing that by over $3,000. And that's just because we did replace a lot of that furniture. So there is a little bit in the budget for some replacements, but that has significantly decreased. The last thing I would like to highlight is grade 7 and 8 literature books. So we know that there is a lot of online learning, but we also know that there is a place, there's a time and place for additional materials such as workbooks, things that kids can take with them home, different ways to access the curriculum. So we are budgeting $7,772 for that. And that's everything I have.
Good evening. So for student services, our proposed budget for the upcoming school year is $6,540,576. Our current budget that we're operating under is $5,581,902 with a difference of an increase of $958,584. To highlight some of our larger cost increases, under other professional services, we're looking for an increase of $43,542. This is to take into account any services that need to be contracted for students either in district or out of district with contractors, whether that be in the area of academic services, a related service that we do not have as a professional position within our district, services for out-of-district students who are placed in a school that may not have that staff member as well, as well as any other support services that may be unanticipated that were taken into account for this, that were not able to be taken into account a year ago when this budget was created. Tuition to private and other schools. This is an increase of approximately $394,330. Again, this is increase for students that are in specialized programming and placements. When we are looking for an out-of-district placement for students, we are matching them with the school that best meets their needs, and all of those schools have varying costs. It could be that 2 students are at the same school, but based on the needs and the number of services that they need, those costs are not exactly the same. So this is based on the students that we have currently placed as well as anticipated placement. Pinkerton tuition, this is where we are paying, and this is an approximate cost because we do not have their numbers yet, but students that are going to be at Pinkerton next year that require specialized programming for their services. So that could be ACT, that could be resource room or passes. So what we did was we took the current year's costs and approximated with a 5% increase until we have more exact numbers. Specialized transportation. This is a large increase of $335,986. Coming into this fiscal year, we had contracted with an additional vendor for transportation needs that our current vendor was not able to cover. Again, a year ago, that was not an anticipated cost and was not able to be added to the presentation. So with that being said, we have added that to encompass that cost for this next fiscal year. Specialized transportation could be in-district, could be out-of-district, could be reimbursement of mileage per the current IRA rate. And new equipment. So new equipment encompasses the increase of $97,000 for the local transportation vehicle that has been discussed at our past few school board meetings. The hope with purchasing this would be to decrease that specialized transportation cost. Although we can't do door-to-door service from home to home, we can certainly take into account any life skills field trips that our case manager here at Hampstead Middle School does. We could transport students that are going from out-of-district placement to another placement. We have some students that access work opportunities or may go to another place to take classes that their current placement does not offer. So we certainly have plenty of opportunities to utilize a local transportation vehicle. A cost highlight that I just wanted to make note of that is not in here. Under our information access fees, we do have a secure document transmission software increase. At the beginning of August, Governor Sununu passed and signed into law effective October 1st that districts will be sending special education records by electronic mail. In the past, parents had been asked if they would prefer to send their received documents electronically, and that has changed. That documents will be sent electronically unless parents ask for them not to be. With that being said, our district has a secure email that can be turned on and off, as well as a way of signing documents electronically that again has to be sent securely. So in order for this to be ensured, we do need to make sure that any professional, student services staff member, or administrator who would be sending confidential documents has access to being able to do so, which leads to an increased cost. Up next is technology.
Good evening. The Hampstead School District's proposed technology budget is $394,557. Our current budget is $419,172, with a difference of $24,615 in savings. Some of our technology highlights. We completed our cybersecurity infrastructure update, so this is going to be a decrease of $82,490. This project is complete. We have completed the cycle rotation for staff administrative laptops with a decrease of $7,495. This year, in addition to the first grade and the fifth grade Chromebooks, we will need to replace the Hampstead Central Schools kindergarten Chromebooks. This is an increase of $28,196, and these are devices that include a touch screen. I'm also including gumdrop protective Chromebook cases for these kindergartners, as they will be taking their devices home, and it ensures proper protection for these devices. We have cybersecurity awareness training for an increase of $7,573. This security training is to drive awareness and change user behavior, and we are using this currently. Behavior plugin for PowerSchool. This is a $1,605 annual fee. We are exploring, and we're going to be pushing out the behavior plugin for PowerSchool this year, but the annual fee is going to be on my budget for the 25-26. And now I would like to introduce Mr. Mackey, the Director of Facilities.
Evening. All right, as you can see, proposed budget is $1,123,770. The current budget is sitting at $2,330,936. The difference there, the addition renovation is roughly $1.56 million in there. I know it looks like I'm doing a phenomenal job, but that eats up most of that. The facilities budget is roughly up around $350,000. With that being said, some of the highlights are, as we've discussed at prior meetings, the HMS oil tank removal and install at $213,840. That tank's just getting to the age that it needs to be replaced. Looking to do a budgetary phasing in of some money for the HCS leach bed. That is to take off some burden of the next budget at $150,000. The middle school needs some fire panel field parts replaced. That sits at $32,616. The middle school has some PFAS tanks for the water filtration that need to be upgraded, and that is at $16,936. And what we are moving forward from is the truck plow and dump insert that we got that was purchased, installed, everything. That is at about $61,000. The HMS Library Computer Lab AC, $36,000. That project is complete. 7th grade wing carpet, $20,000. Project complete. And the boys' locker room polished concrete at $9,800. That project's complete. So those are falling off the budget, and the others are hopefully on it.
Hi, good evening. Next up is the curriculum budget. I am proposing a $236,000, 238 new budget. Our current budget is $62,000 and change, and the difference is $174,000. It's important to note that our current curriculum budget is relatively low due to the fact that this year we were able to home grow and home write our science curriculum. So rather than purchase text that talks about other kids getting to do science, our teachers wanted to design lessons where our children are doing the science. So I feel very strongly about that. And so that actually was able to save us quite a bit of money. We still purchased some new technology and some outdoor classroom supplies. But our new curriculum will use more phenomena and lab experiences. Can we go back one more, Joe, please? Having said that, what this slide doesn't show also is the year prior when we did our English Language Arts curriculum review. So during the 23-24 budget cycle, I had allocated $94,000 for English Language Arts curriculum review, and that was able to be supplemented at that time with ESSER 3, and at that time we also had a really robust Title I rollover, which we were able to access every 3 years. So anytime we look at the curriculum cycle, there are certain subject areas that are more costly than others. So now we'll go to the next slide. Thank you. So you will see in this budget, I have incorporated our district mentoring program for $22,500. This mentoring program, I'm moving from a federal grant. It's been living really in Title II for as long as I've been here. I'm moving it over to the operating budget. This will pay for mentor coordinators, mentors for our support staff, which is an area of high turnover, and then also mentors for our professional staff. And the next item, which is the largest item, is the math instruction. This will account for math materials for up to 6 years, including work texts and manipulatives, training, and then additional curriculum hours for our teachers. As they unpack the curriculum, they need time outside of their teaching duties to get familiar with new curriculum. I've also included $3,800 for Summer Learning Academy. This is moved from ESSER 3 to our operating budget last year, but this provides us with 4 weeks of summer enrichment for students, free to the community. It is rich with experiential learning opportunities. This covers our supplies and our staffing costs. So this is important to note. This is a net difference than what we currently have. Then lastly, I wanted to show the savings of our science curriculum review. So last year I had budgeted $4,400 for our redesign of phenomena and incorporation of project-based learning, and so we will not be needing that money this year. I also have the next slide, which is about Pinkerton enrollment and our district enrollments. So as you can see, for the 24-25 school year, as of October 1st, we have 356 students over at Pinkerton. We are projecting to have 357 students next year. Of course, these numbers fluctuate. Below, you will see some of the HiSET and ACT programs they offer, which those numbers fluctuate during the year. And then when you couple that with our district enrollment, we are projecting an increase. We currently have 828 students within our LEA, that's our local education agency, and next year we're projecting just over 1,200 students. We'll talk about it. Okay. Our tuition for Pinkerton, we do pay tuition for students to attend Pinkerton. This year's actual rate is $16,308. We budgeted $5.8 million for that expenditure and some change for 356 students this year. Every year when we make these projections, we budget 6% increase. We are in constant communication with Pinkerton, and until that tuition rate is set, we just estimate around 6%. So that would put us at $17,287 per student for the 357 students that are there. So we will be budgeting $6.1 million for that tuition.
Yeah, the enrollment, we are not having an increase of 400 kids next year. I had a mild heart attack. We'll make an adjustment. Really, the bottom line, and I met with Dr. Powers today, Pinkerton, to discuss enrollment and budget, and Pinkerton next year is pretty much flat. And you can tell from our enrollment, as of right now, we predict being flat as well. So before we move on, because I know that the board has a number of questions, so I just want to be clear, like, this is just our operational expenses. This is what we need to do the work of educating children, and again, being a little bit better next year than we are this year. This is the money we need for the trains to run on time. What you will see at the next meeting is then we go into the salary, and then some of the other operational expenses, and then that all comes together to equal the operating budget. So you're just seeing the expense side of things today. So with that said, I know that the board has questions, so we'll open it up and we'll have each director come up if folks have questions. So why don't we get started?
I had questions for Nicole. We'll start with curriculum since you're right there. So for the math curriculum, I see that this is proposed as a 6-year license, and based on what you explained to us during our budget meeting, that 6-year license was a particular cost. But I'm wondering if there's a way to potentially shorten that to maybe 3 or 4 years. What I'm kind of concerned about is that technology is rapidly changing. Approaches to the way we teach math are changing all the time, and 6 years seems like a long commitment along with a large price tag. So have we entertained the idea of what 3 or 4 years might look like?
Certainly. When I get quotes from companies, I will ask for a 1-year, a 3-year, and a 6-year quote. I do have quotes for the 1 and 3 years. I just would like the board to know that it's a heavy lift for teachers, particularly elementary teachers, to review a curriculum because they're generalists and they teach multiple subject areas every day. I would be cautious about shortening that curriculum cycle to anything less than 3 years. If you think about it, we just purchased Wonders 2 years ago. We are still learning all the intricate components of Wonders and working over our ELA classroom time to make sure all those pieces are getting utilized to the best of the teacher's ability and accessed by the students. So yes, I can absolutely do that. This cost, just so you're aware, is approximately $25 to $27 per student per year. So one thing to know is if we, and I have not really heavily negotiated with these companies yet because we're still piloting. Once we know which company we really want to work with, we will really squeeze it to get it down as low as I can. But if we go a shorter term, the price per student per year goes up. So we might be paying $30 per year instead of $21.
And the other thing to note is obviously one curriculum is more expensive than the other, just with the materials and the licenses that come with it. So something we definitely need to factor in.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a question to follow up on that. If you lock into a curriculum for 3 years, 6 years, in that second contract, if you want to continue the same company, do you tend to see a significant jump because they know you're somewhat locked in to the curriculum because you've already implemented it?
You mean 6 years from now? I do believe that's what's happened with our current Big Ideas contract, actually, because we had been a Big Ideas company for a long time, or a school district, and when 6 years ago, when they locked in and brought the elementary school on board, I believe that the price is higher than what it should have been.
Okay.
But that is something that I would negotiate for. Mm-hmm.
And the last question I had for Nicole was around the restorative practices line. It's for the education and book. So reading through that, altogether, total for both schools, it would be $24,800. And I guess I'm just floating the idea out there of is this essential, and can we potentially, seek something like grant funding around restorative practices?
Yeah, so restorative practices was something we brought in last year. We got a grant from the state for Promising Futures, and we were able to train every staff member, every professional staff member with their Tier 1 training from Suffolk University. And then we also trained every paraprofessional in Tier 1. So this money is budgeted for implementation of Tier 2 and Tier 3, which would help us get to small groups and individual services to support MTSSB. Certainly, I am looking for grants to help support that work. We did apply for a round of another round of Promising Futures grant money this year, and we were not chosen. It was a very competitive season, but we're looking at other ways to do it. We could certainly put the Tier 2 and Tier 3 trainings into grants and slow roll those trainings for teachers if we had to. The piece that I think is essential is any new staff member really needs that Tier 1 training and the Circles book, but that's a nominal cost, and that could be that's part of the mentoring budget. It's part of new hire orientation supplies.
Would it be possible to have a smaller group of people do the Tier 2, Tier 3 training and then reteach others? Because from my experience, a lot of people don't end up doing a lot of Tier 2, Tier 3.
That's right. In fact, so we could look at a train-the-trainer situation. The other thing, I've been in talks with all of the sending schools to Pinkerton who might be interested in joining the cohort. So when we purchase a Tier 2 training, typically there's 20 seats. We probably will not use, and same for Tier 3, we definitely will not fill 20 seats of Tier 3. And so I would want to fill those seats with other districts who are also doing restorative practices, and we would do the same with Tier 2.
And that means sharing the cost.
That would be cost sharing, exactly.
Great.
Yep.
Yeah, that feels a lot more palatable to me if we're spreading the cost over multiple people. And then it's going to be helpful for when they get to Pinkerton.
Yeah.
Well, here's an Amy question. Do they use restorative practices when they get to Pinkerton?
Absolutely.
There we go. So they'll be better prepared for when they get to Pinkerton. Okay.
Before we let Nicole go, any other questions or comments for Nicole?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good. Just to what you were saying about the contract lengths for the math curriculum, I certainly would not support looking at a one-year deal for curriculum. We know that that's horrible for teachers, but at the same time, I would caution the board towards approving anything that's like a 6-year commitment. That's a real long time for a curriculum. So just want to say that.
We do have our curriculum reviews on a cycle, just so you're aware. So we look at ELA, 2 years ago, science last year, math this year, social studies the following year, UAs, and then we'll look at foreign language. But certainly, if the board directs me to do it in less than a 6-year cycle, we can accommodate.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cycle's fine, but I think signing 6 years with a
agreement.
specific company can get dicey.
Don't be afraid to look at all sorts of different year options, is what you're saying.
But I think the fact that you have quotes for a 3-year and a 4-year would be super helpful for us to see at some point.
Okay.
So thanks.
And I just add, I'll brag on Nicole's part, because she is definitely a fierce negotiator when it comes to these companies. But also part of what both Nicole and Jeff have been doing with these companies is trying to get them towards more of a structured payment system, because there's this very large upfront cost, which makes it difficult for us to manage when we have annual budgets. So I know that they've been working to try to structure it so we make annual payments. It's been very difficult to try to get these companies on board, and not just for Hampstead. We're having conversations as superintendents, and I know the curriculum directors are as well. If this were a breakdown of every year, we broke up those payments over 6 years, that price would be a lot more manageable for budgeting, but right now they're not doing that, so.
So I do have a question, so when it comes to special education, we've talked a lot about transportation costs, and we've talked a lot about Pinkerton's ability to help with special education. Do we know Pinkerton has slowly started to step that up? Is there any plans for Pinkerton to add specialized programs so that we would not have to transport students as far and they could go to Pinkerton, which would both be the right thing for them, but also save the district money?
Yeah, so I'll speak a little generally on that one. So that's been an ongoing topic of discussion that I've had with Dr. Powers. In fact, we had that discussion today. There is some hope in the new social studies building that they are building. It is almost completed. It'll be completed in December. That includes an entire new area for special education that actually includes like a functional life skills program. So that new addition will provide for expansion of their programming. There are some challenges with that. And number one, right off the bat, is staffing. I know that their current, their PASSES program is a good example. It's a specialized special education program. They have a very difficult time staffing their existing programming. And then three, where these aren't, we're not just talking about numbers here, right? We're talking about people. And, IEP teams have meetings to determine, placement. And, that placement decision is based on a variety of factors. So, if you build additional programming here or at Pinkerton, there is a long-term goal of providing that service to our kids here. But it doesn't always equate to, well, next year we'll have so many families come back.
Correct.
Because those are decisions that are made by an IEP team.
Yeah, for me, I would like you to keep having conversations with the fellow superintendents for the sending schools to try to keep applying pressure towards Pinkerton.
Yeah.
Because I can't imagine if, say, you have an autistic student or operational defiance student and they have to travel an hour on the bus, how that will affect them, and I'd rather have them doing 15 minutes to Pinkerton.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt about that. And that's the experience the vast majority of our students have. So, if you're a family and you have a child with a disability, your hope and aspiration might be that your kid gets to have that same experience. Like that point's not lost on us, so we appreciate that.
All right, I had questions for Jeff Mackey around facilities. So first off, I'll say I see in the budget here you did reduce some of the playground equipment by $3,400, so I appreciate you doing that since our last meeting. I had questions around the parking lot line striping. So I guess, do you feel that it's essential from a safety standpoint this year?
So we do it every year. That's an every year cost because the lines do get pretty beat up through the winter after plowing, and obviously there's walkways that we paint and try to keep we're kids in line more at Central School. So I mean I feel it is highly important because they take a good beating through the winter months when the plow's scraping against it and the sun hitting it, and they fade pretty well.
Got it. And just to kind of put it on the board's radar, I know you are going through the locker room polished tile floor cycle of redoing those, where we do have big ticket items like leach fields and oil tank replacements. Is that something that at this point you feel is essential?
So, I mean, since I've been here, I've been trying to do at least one polished concrete floor a year. They do generally come in around the $9,000 to $10,000 spot. I mean, since I've been here, I was able to do the kitchen, the FCS room, a science room, the art room, the industrial art room. It's kind of just a trend I've been on. I've just been trying to keep some maintenance happening, and with the tank taking up so much money, there's not a lot of other things that are going on. And I felt that was a low enough cost to get that locker room shining and kind of matching its counterpart with the boys' locker room. So,
got it.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Jeff Mackey? No. Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. I had questions for Joe.
Yes.
Joe, can you talk about $700 for polos and clothing?
Sure. I think it's important to have identification for technology personnel walking through the buildings, and that $700 would be $175 times 4 people, and that would include identified clothing, shirts, polos, and like a light jacket. There's a lot of times that my guys are walking through the halls, and myself included, just be able to identify the staff similar to the facilities staff.
Got it.
Hard to have the IDs on there around their neck. So.
Oh, yep. And then the other question was around the PTZ cameras, the district camera equipment. So I know we talked about this during the previous budget meeting, and have we been in communication with the cable company at all about potentially?
So I have a cable commission meeting tomorrow. I'm going to bring it up, but if you check the budget, I've already removed that. So I'm no longer requesting for the PTZ cameras. I'm going to request some funding from the cable commission, which I am a part of, and we are meeting tomorrow at 7.
Excellent. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Joe? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Amy Bernard for Hampstead Middle School. So you spoke about the principal mentor training. I won't ask you about that. I am kind of curious about who you found, if you're willing to share the school.
Yeah, so longtime middle school principal Brenda Moreau of Wyndham Middle School.
Great.
Yeah, she's been a great resource already.
Awesome. I did have questions around basketball uniforms. So I saw that boys' basketball uniforms were listed. Do girls need uniforms? Is there?
There's a cycle for uniform replacement, and I believe that all of them are on a 5-year cycle. So I have a document that actually says which ones are which year, but that's just the one up this year.
Got it. That's helpful. For the CPR mannequins that were listed, I was a little unclear about the explanation during the public budget meeting. So are these essential? It sounded like we might have ones already that are workable, or maybe not. Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, so we were able to replace half of the amount last year through grant funding. The rest of our mannequins are over 10 years old. So we're looking to replace the other half of them. Our health teacher, Katie Muskrat, does all the CPR training for the school. So this is really helpful in having the number that are all the same. And I will say, as somebody who is CPR certified, the newer mannequins have equipment with them that allow you to actually watch as you do the compressions to see that it is an effective compression. So the technology has increased quite a bit, and the new mouthpieces are different. So I think this would just allow the whole class to run on that same, the same education when she's, going over those different methods of instruction, if you will.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Last one was around school-wide assemblies, and I saw a $3,500 number there, and I was just kind of curious about what types of expenses go into school assemblies and how you got to that number.
Sure. So, we're looking at the climate and culture of our building, right? And building a culture of kindness and anti-bullying. So certainly there is some work to be done there in looking at different speakers that could come in. Last year we had recycled percussion here. We could look at Ed Garrity. I've worked with James Origo before. So there's some different speakers that we could look at to talk to the students about that. In addition, we're looking at anti-drug, so vaping, alcohol, those types of presentations, also suicide prevention, and then our Veterans Day assembly, things of that nature too. There are minor costs in that, so this is for an entire year. That's what that is budgeted for.
Great. No, that definitely enlightens me. That makes a lot more sense now. All right.
On the stage.
Yeah.
We already discussed this, but I think that it might be good for the listeners at home to explain the cost of the stage, purchasing a new one versus renting it. Because
Right.
that makes sense.
So we did some homework in terms of rental fees for stage, and per use, it was almost $3,000. So that stage would pay for itself probably within a year for some of, between the two schools and then some of the plans I have for it. And we are talking about a stage right now that is over 30 years old, that is held up by cinder blocks. So, and is not really portable or easy to assemble. So this would allow some versatility there too. But yeah, to rent a stage is close to $3,000 every time.
Yeah, I thought that was important for people to understand that while that price tag is large, there's sort of a reason behind it, because the renting is not really the best choice.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions for Amy?
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. All right. Student services. Melissa. So I don't know if this is a you question or a Jeff question, but the secure document transmission software, that's a big price tag of $17,000, and I don't know what to say. I was surprised to see that cost, and I don't know if either of you can speak on the need for that, and if we've ever considered, shopping around.
Yes, I did work with Jeff on this price point because I wasn't sure exactly how to budget for that either. But he and I did have a discussion about whether there was a more cost-effective route to take. Currently, we're using PandaDoc.
Right.
And so we budgeted for 20 seats for the next fiscal year, which is up 5 from what we currently have. Again, this allows our student services professional staff as well as any administrator who it would be in need of sending secured special education documents to do so in a manner that protects them.
I can say from working in another district, we didn't have it because it was $20,000.
Yeah.
So it's definitely expensive. And the only, I think, offset you could do would be to have parents sign permission to send things home over email.
Which is manual and
But it's
was a
also not
security
secure,
risk.
right.
Right, which is
Not
why I mentioned
encrypted.
that new bill that was signed into effect October 1st. So now what Governor Sununu was saying is we don't need parent permission any longer to send electronically, that he's expecting we are sending electronically. So to take that extra measure.
So this is basically helpful. So say if you have an IEP meeting and then afterwards you need to get people to sign off afterwards to speed up the process and kind of make life.
Instead of sending paper copies home.
Yeah.
Yeah. you can
And
just
then
sign up.
it's going to kind of make life easier so that your special ed personnel will be able to provide more services to students and less time on paperwork. Is that accurate?
Yes, that, and we also then have documentation of who signed and when that happened. So we have date and time stamps as well.
Okay.
That's true, and just so the board knows, we purchased our first system, if you will, our first electronic signature workflow during COVID, as well as our first secure send. And at the time, and you all are familiar with PandaDoc, sort of an odd name, odd product, but it's very comparable to the industry leader, which was literally untouchable at the time. So we are at the lesser option, the lower cost option on that. I don't think it impacts security. It seems like it's a good platform.
Right.
But they've gone up over the years. I think that all of those computer companies have taken advantage of the market. Is that a good way for me to put it? So they've all gone up. But this was, the PandaDoc was one of our better value.
And that's helpful to know for me, just that it was on the lower end of the costs that were presented in terms of different software options you had, so.
Yeah, we don't just have the PandaDoc for electronic signature and workflow. We also have Virtru for just sending electronic documents in an encrypted way.
Right, so we've got both pieces. PandaDoc allows for that signature securely, and then Virtru allows us to send that email with the full attachment of the paperwork securely.
So there's going to be no way you're going to be able to pull this number off the top of your head, but how often would it be using it? Like, is that something you can come back with for the next meeting where it's like, this is how much we'd be using it per day, per week, per month?
A lot. Yeah, I was going to say it's multiple times, but yes, I can get you a more accurate number.
30 times a day.
Thank you.
So you're looking for daily usage or maybe weekly, because there could be some weeks where meetings are less than others.
Whatever is easiest to convert to this many $1,000 per this many uses, if that makes sense, like to have an idea.
Absolutely. And the other factor is that our state IEP system does allow for parent signature, but only for parts of the special education process, not for the entirety. So when a parent is coming in and the team is proposing evaluations to conduct, that's not a feature that they could access during the IEP, through the IEP system for signature. So it limits us to only have certain pieces that can be covered through our state system versus being able to use it for all parts of the process.
Great. Any other questions for Melissa? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And last but not least, Dr. Cheney, Central School.
We don't have it.
Thought I almost didn't have a turn.
Right? So
You're laughing pretty hard.
I sat with you and we went through every Q-tip, every Band-Aid, every crayon, everything you could possibly go through, and I've scrutinized your budget so closely over the past week, and I can't find anything to ask you about. So I'm gonna not ask you any questions, but I'm hoping that other board members saw something that I didn't.
You got it. So we did make one adjustment after our meeting last week. As I mentioned, we are re-implementing a replacement cycle for furniture.
Right.
I had initially budgeted $25,000 for that, but in looking at costs and things, I've reduced that by $5,000. So we're requesting $20,000 at this point.
That's great.
I have a question. The desks, the teacher desks, was that the 25 to 20,000?
So they're actually student desks,
Oh,
but
they're
yes.
student desks.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. then that clarifies it.
What's a Bebot pen holder?
So our B-Bots are little coding robots that students use through technology and also in our Ventures program. And the pen holder essentially holds a pen, so when the students code on a piece of paper, they can see the path that their B-Bot took, and it maps it out for them.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
I learned this in the meeting.
Okay. Well, that wasn't in your meeting.
I guess I have a question for Melissa. Sorry.
Thank you.
Oh,
Can I ask?
okay. Thank you, Dr. Cheney.
So I'm going to try to ask this without trying to get specifics. The instructional reading services for 159, is that for out of district, or is that kids that are in district and extra support coming here?
Extra support coming here in district.
And the Lexington Academy for the 100,000, I know it can add up fast, like per hour.
Yes,
Do
it can.
you have an idea of how many students we're sending there?
We are currently sending a small handful, so it's around 4 to 5.
Do we have staff that are trained in the same services that are being provided by these outside agencies?
We do. What it comes down to is the amount of time that the students may need that instruction for, and whether our staff can devote that amount of time without it impacting other students receiving services.
And we have two reading interventionists at each school.
Reading specialists, yes. Yep.
Is there a way to see, I guess I'm just concerned with the amount of money we're spending on that when we should have staff that's qualified to provide those services.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if it's the number of students we need with the services. I've just never seen it where we're not providing it in a school to that extent.
No, and so over these next few weeks, I'm going to be doing a deeper dive with the building principals now that we've gone through our initial fall benchmarking data, and really looking at where the students' weaknesses are and what we can do to help service them better, but also be more fiscally responsible with our contracted services.
Because I'd almost be open to seeing training if we have people that aren't trained that's in the budget.
Absolutely. And some of our newer staff definitely require some training, and I'm working to get that for them as well.
Okay.
Kind of off topic, but still kind of on topic. So are there any expenses in here related to this new RISE program that?
Not directly, no. I've been able to support through our IDEA grants.
Okay.
For purchasing of different equipment that they may need, materials to help support that. Exciting news on Friday evening, I heard from the Department of Education that that has been officially approved.
Excellent.
So that is next phase of planning coming, so that we can make sure that they have everything that they need, especially as the addition at HCS is wrapping up, and they'll be able to access their new space.
Okay, so we will be utilizing the new space specifically for that new program?
Does RISE go into one room of the new space? Two rooms of the new space.
Excellent. Great. All right. Any other questions for Melissa or anyone else in the administration staff? Okay.
I did want to shout out to the budget committee that came to the workshop.
Yes. Thank you.
His chair is here, and also he came up with the idea of talking with the cable commission about the camera, which was very helpful to try to tighten things up for us, so it was much appreciated.
And certainly, again, I'll reiterate, just having more bodies in the room, more voices, more perspectives to ask questions was certainly helpful during that public meeting. So thank you all again for coming.
And I lastly just want to acknowledge the work that this team has done. It is such a challenge to put together an operating budget at the very start of school. And again, you got to realize we're trying to forecast, so they start working on these in the summer for a budget that won't start for another year. It's very difficult to do, and the process that we've undertaken requires them to get quotes, to negotiate,
It is not an easy task, and I appreciate all the work that they've done. So again, for the public, all of the items that were discussed tonight are on the website. You can go and view them. Our next phase is to finalize our numbers around staffing. Shared some thoughts with the board. We are open to some feedback, and that would be a future meeting where we present staffing and the full operating budget. So.
The only comment that I had was just to that. I know, at least for me personally, it's very hard for me to give feedback on things like restorative justice and supplies when I don't really know the full cost of staffing.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate you letting us put you through the ringer in this process. Okay. Moving on to the HCS renovation update. No worries.
Thank you very much for putting it up on the screen. So if you could advance the slide. So as an update on the HCS infill classroom project, I'm going to reiterate, just for those who may be viewing for the first time on our simulcast, that the project adds 2 new classrooms between the 40s wing and the 60s wing. It renovates 2 existing classroom spaces in the 40s wing. This was approved by the Hempstead voters at the last ballot in March 2024. Total project cost is $1,558,950. Cost will be paid from the Hempstead School District Capital Reserve Fund. The project is originally and currently estimated to be complete in mid-November. So we're on track, and generally speaking, we're on budget. I know that we had one serious overage that I think that our budget can absorb. And I'll show you a little bit about what's going on inside the building. Joe, if we could advance. So what you see right there is the new second floor classroom. What you are witnessing are in fact windows. So that's kind of neat. You'll see some drywall going up. The windows both upstairs and downstairs, they're in. Unfortunately, they're not to, I guess you could say, our standard. They get banged up a little bit in transit, and although I don't believe any of the glass necessarily is broken, some of the units will be replaced, and our general contractor is handling all of that for us. Joe? So the new classroom on the first floor, you can also see the windows are in place there. That ceiling will remain open, and that will be painted white, and you can see some drywall going up in the back of that room as well. The existing classroom, and the existing 40s wing classroom, that's the downstairs lower level classroom. You can see a lot of metal in that picture, and inside that metal are the original carrying beams from the 1940s. And based on just the age of the building and our seeking to have this done once, done right while that ceiling is open, we have what they call sistered the metal joist to the existing wooden carrying beams, some of which we're cracking. That is the largest span, I believe, in that building, in that old section of the building. So it would be, it would be expected that we would have some signs of use, and hopefully this will get us through the next 80 years with that space. The room that is in, as well as that new first floor classroom, someone had asked about the RISE program, and the new first floor classroom, I think on the left, is primarily where that program is going to take place. And that existing 40s wing classroom leads right into it. You can see that there's a door on that first floor classroom, sort of in the middle, and that's where that goes into that 40s wing classroom. So we're going to be in decent shape once things get wrapped up. And I have one more picture from the outside to show you, very unexciting because we have scaffolding in the way. That scaffolding is actually how our contractors access the second floor without having to go through the school. And you can see that the windows are there. We have one window that we're looking to have replaced as well. It's the white window kind of in the back there. That's in the library, and that will be replaced as well. So I don't know if there are any questions. Generally good update. We did run into, I believe the cost will be in the $30,000 range to have all of our carrying beams in the old 40s wing first floor classroom ceiling reinforced. But that certainly will extend the life and give all of us a good deal of confidence in the building going forward. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address them.
And with that replacement, my understanding was that we're still within the budget.
I think we'll be able to absorb it in the budget, yeah. We had some contingency funds in the budget for something that should come up, and we've had a couple things come up. That being the larger expense item. We had some subsurface conditions that were less than ideal under that new wing that were resolved during the summer, and that added a bit to the cost as well. In terms of engineering, it also added some time, but they've been able to make up the time and keep us on track, so I'm really pleased.
One of those things about the windows is the blinds are inside the windows, so the littles can't go and hang from them or pull on them or tear them or break them, so it makes it, the shelf life of them is a lot longer.
Great. Any other questions for Jeff? Okay, thank you, Jeff. We are moving on with you with the budget transfer request.
Yep. Pursuant to school board policy, I do have a rather large budget transfer request, and I've captioned that in the memo that you have in front of you, dated October 18th, and the budget request, the transfer relates to, and Mrs. McDonald is here and can speak to it if you'd like. We essentially have some additional funding in our tuition to private schools and other accounts that's available to move to special education transportation and to our other professional services line in the special education function. The reason for this is that we've had some programmatic changes. We've had some changes that we thought would be tuition to private and other schools and will be handled through other services, other professional services. A little different in this budget request, this budget transfer request. At the bottom, especially because we're in budget season, I listed the accounts at stake as well as the voted budget, year-to-date expense, encumbrance, and the balance to give you an idea where we're at in accommodating those budget requests.
Any questions on this budget transfer?
The budget transfer as outlined in Mr. O'Dowd's October 18th, 2024 memorandum.
Second. Any questions? All approved?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, board members, in your packets you have some policies for first reading. So we have one for fee site acquisition procedure.
Yeah, definitely.
Just a reaffirming by the board of that policy. Number 2 is for HPA employee job actions, with some slight revisions in there. We have GBCC staff conduct. There's GBE, the employee rights and responsibilities, GBEA, staff ethics, GBEBB, staff student loan relations, GBG, employee protection, and GDM, support staff opportunities.
So, Mr. Thompson, for the staff student relations, staff ethics, staff conduct, this would bring us in line with what the current state code of ethics for teachers, educators is, correct?
Yes, and we discussed this a little bit at the policy meeting. So when you look at the New Hampshire Code of Conduct, which was adopted in 2018, that Code of Conduct covers licensed professionals is the language that's used. So that's your certified teachers, it's your certified paraeducators. We have staff members who are not technically licensed. And so what many of the changes that are being proposed do is it provides sort of uniform application of the Code of Conduct so that everyone is held to that same standard.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
GBEBB, just for the board's knowledge, applies to staff and student relations, and we did talk during the policy meeting about staff interactions, written, verbally, via social media, and tried to incorporate language that encompasses all of those different methods of communication.
When teachers communicate with students, it's usually done through some sort of class dojo or something like that, where the parent is also aware. Is that true, or?
So, obviously, largely communications between teachers and students occur in person. There are mechanisms within Google Classroom, which is, obviously a platform we use, that allows for commenting and communication. Also, our students do have email addresses, so they can communicate that way. There may be others that I'm sure the principals may remind me of after.
But staff is not Facebook friends, and they're not Snapchatting with students?
That would not be appropriate.
Okay, thank you. I would like to make a motion to approve for first reading fee site acquisition procedure, HBA employee job actions, GBCC staff conduct, GBE, GBEA, GBEBB, GBG, and GDM.
I will second that. Any questions or comments on these policies? Okay, all approved. All right, moving on to board comments and correspondence. Board members, anything to share?
So I went to the New Hampshire School Board Association conference. One of the interesting things was Jaffrey Range was school board or school district of the year. One of the interesting things they talked about was impact fees, and then the School Board Association as a whole voted to try to get the state legislature to mandate that planning boards include impact fees within districts so that they account for when, say, a new development is built, then they will then account for it when it comes to the effects of schools. We probably do not have any significant housing developments going in, but I thought it would have been great if we had that back in 1984. Another interesting thing that came up was that district daycare. So Jaffrey has district daycare at their middle school for their personnel, and then they have the middle school students work at the district daycare for early childhood development, which I thought was incredibly interesting, and it created that community feel and also made it really welcoming for the teachers. On the downside, there was a big discussion on the New Hampshire minimum standards. The New Hampshire School Board Association basically, there's a JLCAR committee which basically looks at is the state, anybody that works for the state, like under the executive branch, are they doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is the State Board of Education? And basically, it is not believed that they can stop the changes in the minimum standards unless it is blatantly illegal, and it is generally the school board administration's, New Hampshire School Board Association's belief that it does not meet that standard. However, Jill Carr did push it off until after the election, and there's going to be a new group of representatives, so it is possible that they could try to stop the State Board of Education from changing the minimum standards. However, it would probably just result in a lawsuit that would then take a while. But the gist of it is the State Board of Education has now massively lowered the standards for education in New Hampshire, and therefore the support that we could hold the New Hampshire Department of Education has massively lowered. There are no class size caps effectively anymore. There are no high school credit requirements anymore. There's no requirement for custodians in schools anymore. It's a lot. We do have the ability in our community to sustain our education ourselves, but from what happened, I believe that at a state level, any sort of financial implications for the state is going to be hurt by this, and if we're going to be looking for stuff, we're going to be looking from the federal government from now on for the foreseeable future unless something changes. So, State School Board Administration did pass a resolution that basically said that we don't believe that this was a good idea. I forget what the actual specifics are, but near universal from every school board in the state basically said that this was a mistake and it should not have been done. But it is not being listened to, including the state legislature has held the State Board of Education to account in hearings and fell on deaf ears. The State Board of Education takes, like a school board, they're on 3-year terms. So even if you started turning them over now, it's going to be at least another 2 years before the minimum standards would be returned to any sort of normalcy that we've seen in the last 30 years. So yeah, it is going to affect New Hampshire education for a significant period of time after this. So yeah, sorry, wish I had better news.
Well, thanks for the update. Board members, anything else to talk about or share? Okay. We will move on to the 2024-2025 personnel report.
No personnel report, but if moving on to the superintendent report, I thought I would ask Principal Bernard just to give a quick little update on Play for the Cure.
So I'd like to thank the Hampstead Athletic Club, first of all, for organizing and facilitating this amazing event. I've been on the other side as a parent observing, and what I can tell you is it is such an awesome experience to be a part of within the walls of our school. It's really something that the entire community embraces, and just wow, what a fantastic couple of days. Also, I'd like to thank our school board chair, Andy Cabarrus, for his emceeing and excellent DJ skills that day. I don't know how you did it, but you played one song, I think, 3 times, despite your better judgment. Well done. So yeah, it was a wonderful day, but I think most importantly, it's really about the cause, right? So there's a lot of school spirit, the kids get really into it, but we know that it's really about raising awareness and generating money for breast cancer research. And over the past 12 years, this school has raised a total of $32,000, making us in the top 10 of the nation, as shared by Nancy Benson, our athletic director. This year, we raised $5,000. So kudos to our community. I was super proud to be a part of it, and thank you for letting me share that.
And I had Amy do the update because unfortunately I was in a Department of Education Title IX training, which was exhilarating. So it prevented me from attending what is like one of my favorite events. Speaking of really fun events, real quick have Dr. Cheney talk about our Pinkerton students who made a recent visit to our kindergarten classrooms.
Yes, we were fortunate to have the Pinkerton student ambassadors come join our kindergarten students 2 weeks ago. Miss Rosa Matos brought with her 5 Pinkerton Academy students, 3 of whom were former HCS students, so it was wonderful to see them back in the halls, and they got to go see some of their old teachers. The students each went into a separate kindergarten classroom. They taught the students about Alan Shepard, his connection to Pinkerton and New Hampshire. They each read a picture book and talked about what their hopes and dreams are post-graduation, and talked with the students about what they might want to be when they grow up. And all of our kindergarten students went home with their very own Pinkerton t-shirt, so their first of likely many, and a lot of enthusiasm and excitement about their futures.
And speaking of Pinkerton, so today I attended the monthly meeting with Dr. Powers and the Sending Town superintendents. We spent a good deal of time talking about the upcoming budget. We will get firm numbers from Pinkerton at the end of November when their Board of Trustees approves their budget. We typically forecast about a 6% increase, and in talking with Dr. Powers, that seemed to be in the ballpark of what we should be budgeting for. We again talked about special education. We also talked about what Dr. Cheney just talked about, like creating additional opportunities for our students to be able to have that Pinkerton experience, whether it's our students going there, you know, for Magic School Bus or the Sugar Shack or Transition or the CTE program, but them also coming here. You know, the other program that I know the board is aware of is, you know, we've had students from the honors science class come down and actually teach our kids science. So we're looking to expand some of those opportunities, and that was part of the conversation today, that what we've been doing in Hampstead, some of the other surrounding towns are looking to kind of get in on that, to expand their opportunities as well. So also just want to make a plug for this Thursday. The Central School is hosting, they're having a showing of the movie Screenagers Elementary School Edition. That's at 6 p.m. I know for the board members that does conflict with the, there's a Sending Town meeting at Pinkerton. But nonetheless, again, looking for more opportunities, and we're talking about our strategic plan, those deliverables, more opportunities to engage with our community, bring them in, partner with them on some really challenging issues, and you know, screen time for children is definitely one of them. I also just wanted to mention too, I really appreciate the patience and understanding of parents. We've had to make an adjustment that was somewhat last minute on parent conferences on November 5th, you know, and having, you know, conversations with the Hampstead Police Department. You know, they are looking at what they're anticipating for numbers, and not just in Hampstead, but across the state, if not the nation. There's going to be a lot of traffic, a lot of congestion, a lot of first-time voters, and so their recommendation was that we close this building. And we're trying to make some accommodation to have more conferences on Monday, which they've done here at the middle school, but this will be new for the Central School. And you know, we're going to make some accommodation for some in-person conferences on Tuesday, but they won't be held in this building. So I appreciate it. I know some parents already had scheduled times. I understand it is that does have an impact, and you know, we're trying our best. And I would just throw it out there too, that our teachers are very gracious. When a parent makes a request for a conference or an opportunity to meet, we always fit them in. It doesn't have to be at conference time, it's convenient. But you know, we're here to engage with parents anytime they feel the need. So with that said, I will open it up if the board has any questions.
Any questions or comments for Bob? Okay, all right, thank you, Bob. All right, board members, anything else? Okay, at this point, we will adjourn the meeting at 8:40 p.m. Thank you, everyone.